We all want to raise successful kids. Here are some habits that can actually help. Hello and welcome to another edition of Shine 365, where our job is to make your life a little better. Please remember to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where we drop new videos every week. Today's topic is raising successful kids. Science says there's 7 habits that can lead to incredible outcomes. By Bill Murphy Jr. Let's review this article. It all started years ago when I first learned my wife and I were going to be parents, he says. I began collecting science-based parenting advice, both here on Inc.com and my continuously updated ebook, How to Raise Successful Kids. So this author has actually written an entire book on how to raise kids. He probably has a lot of great ideas. Let's dive into this topic. Number 1, teach kids to take pride in their effort, not their gifts. Of all the advice I've shared over the years, this is the habit that prompts the most replies. Not from parents who don't think it works, but from adults who realize how much sense it actually makes and how much they wished their parents had practiced it. Bottom line is this, and this is going to be straightforward. Don't praise your kids for their gifts. Praise them instead for their efforts. In other words, Sally, you're so good at math. Or Ethan, you're such a fast runner. Instead, say, I'm proud of how hard you studied. Or I could see the determination on your face as you crossed the finish line. What it comes down to is the effort. I was always a fast runner growing up. I didn't have to work hard at running fast. In fact, my grandfather was a track star in college. I think I inherited some of those attributes, and I was always fast at running. So my parents didn't necessarily have to praise me for being a fast runner. So say there's something I'm not good at, like for instance, catching a football. Even though I could run very fast, I may not be able to catch that football. But if I put in the work, if every day I go out in the backyard as a kid and I try to catch that football, and perhaps my mom or my dad helps me by throwing that football, once I'm putting in that effort, if they praise me for the effort, that's what really matters. It's not necessarily that I'm a natural talent at catching the football, but if I put in the effort over days, weeks, and months, I will get better because effort delivers results. And that's what we're going for here. We're trying to get children to realize that if they put in effort, it delivers results. You have to put in the effort. Let's go to number 2. Number 2 is, and I'm going to highlight it, get them to play outside. Actually, it's not only kids who should get outside and play, but adults, like you and I, should also get outside. But for now, let's focus on the kids. Younger kids whose schools don't include outdoor recess during the day had a harder time developing good reading skills. So essentially, their playtime outside affected their reading skills. And more recently, researchers from North Carolina State University said they found a striking correlation in kids aged 10 to 18 regarding how much time they spent outdoors and their emotional well-being. And we've talked about this before. Getting out in nature is proven to improve your well-being. It helps depression. It helps you free your mind. It helps anxiety. Getting outside, outdoors, leaving the house, leaving the school building, leaving your tablet or cell phone and getting outside improves your attitude. And apparently, it also improves your skills in reading and other things. Interesting note, this study was from last year, and it's a good example of one of the scientific silver linings we'll see as a result of the pandemic. We've had lots of chances to study and measure things for which would have been hard to find previously. We've just done a big study on what it's like to stay indoors away from people, and we can see what happens to children. We can see what happens to adults when this happens. And actually, it's no surprise it's not a very positive thing when people are stuck inside all the time. Let's go down to number 3. Make sure they learn about good role models. All children should have good role models. Kids will rarely be what they cannot see. They need examples of how to be. They need examples of how to excel in what they're doing. At age 5, so starting at age 5, both boys and girls believed that grown men and grown women were equally likely to be really, really smart. But by ages 7 and 8, girls had overwhelmingly grown to believe that men were more likely than women to be really, really smart. Now, this is very interesting. As they went through school, this incorrect belief led some girls to pursue less ambitious career goals than boys, and to avoid courses and careers in science. As they went through school, this incorrect belief led some girls to pursue less ambitious career goals than boys, and to avoid courses and careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. This, unfortunately, is a sad reality that there aren't as many female engineers as men engineers. One last point here. As the father of a daughter, now this is the author speaking, he says, as the father of a daughter, I see moms and dads who do, in fact, make women role models a priority for their girls. The slightly less obvious part, make sure they're a priority for boys as well. Okay, we're at number 4. Let your kids see you fail. Let them see when you fail. Young kids sometimes seem to think their parents are gods. Honestly, let's admit it. It's not a totally unenjoyable experience if your kid thinks you are the end all, be all of everything. That feels pretty good. But you need to let them realize that you're human just as they are. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology experimented with children as young as 15 months and found that the less their parents allowed them to see how much they struggled and failed at times, the less resilient their kids were. Kids have to see that even a daddy, even a mommy, can struggle at times. And we have to be resilient. We have to show our kids that we're not going to just give up sometimes. If something bad happens, that doesn't mean we turn around and go home. I recently saw a video of another YouTuber, and everybody raises children their own way, but this YouTuber, he took his daughter out surfing, and his daughter was ready to give up, and she had a hard time. She had a fall, but what he did was he made sure she didn't give up. He talked to her, he explained to her that surfing was difficult, that it would take time, and he helped her get back out on the ocean, and she continued to surf. And now she is, at the ripe old age of 7, a really good surfer. Now, we're going to skip down to number 5. Do this with their toys. This one fascinated me, the author said, and it'll probably fascinate us. To cut to the chase, they found that kids, when they were given a smaller number of toys to play with, found ways to expand their imaginations and use them more creatively than kids who were given large number of toys. Now, let's not be stereotypical about this, but do you remember growing up, if you were outside and you didn't have your favorite toy with you, you would often use sticks, maybe rocks, maybe dirt, or taking a stick and pretending it's a sword. You don't necessarily need a toy sword to pretend you have a sword, if that's what you're pretending to have. You can use a stick. You don't need a castle to play with knights in a castle. You can create a castle out of sand or dirt. So, don't get your kids so many toys. Is that advice, the article says? I can hear the rumbling of millions of kids rising up in anger over this, but no, not really. The idea is when you have younger children to rotate their toys and design play spaces that encourage them to focus on the toys they're playing with rather than be distracted by other options. And now we're going to skip down to number 6, and this is a big one. Limit the screen time to this many hours. How much time should children be allowed to spend watching screens, including smartphones, tablets, and gaming consoles? Is the answer 1 to 2 hours? 2 to 4 hours? 4 to 6 hours? Or 8 to 12 hours? Please let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And at the end of the episode, we'll have an answer as recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Parents didn't know how good they had it when they could tell kids to go outside and play without worrying that they'd bring tiny screens out. Kids didn't used to have cell phones, obviously. They didn't used to have tablets. Now they can bring their cell phone outside and they can keep staring at that tiny little screen even when they're out in nature and should be doing something exploratory in nature. They should be looking at their own surroundings. Instead, they're glued to this little screen. And the worst thing is when you see adults and children just walking around glued to that screen and they're oblivious to their real surroundings. And it's been scientifically proven that if you can just look up everything and not explore and find things, if you can just look it up on your phone, your IQ will actually go down. You need to have that ability to create and explore and use your imagination and use your mind. The last habit to include in raising more successful children is not to hover over them. You don't want to hover over your kids. We don't want to do helicopter parenting where we're trying to do everything for our children. You have to let your children explore some things and grow on their own. Your children are not you. Your children are new people. And they'll develop their own personalities, and they need time to explore that on their own. Kids have to do some things on their own. And I'm sure you know that. Each child needs to explore their own creativity. They need to get outside in nature and see the amazing world that's around them. They need time to unlock their own potential, and they need the space to do that. Thanks so much for tuning into this podcast. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Please subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Shine 365.